Yes.
So something that I say all the time is there is no longevity in instant fun.
You said this to me and it stopped me in my tracks one
And
night.
people look at me and they're like, Mitch, I get it. You're not a funny guy. You're right. I'm not funny at all.
To me, that is funny. Just to say that, I think that's funny.
But I'm far more interested in the longevity.
Yeah.
Of what I'm doing today is going to result in X in whatever, however I measure it, right?
So wait, you downplayed a very sophisticated thought by saying, you're not funny. But the thought is the instant gratification seldomly leads to long-term happiness.
You said it so much better than I did.
That's why I get
Yes.
the podcast. But
Yes.
I want you to be back here too, by
Thank
the
you.
way.
From Goalpost Studios in downtown East Lansing, Michigan,
Hello and welcome to the Earn More, Keep More show.
where it's our job to give you tips, tricks, and strategies to earn more and keep more. I'm Dave McAndrews, and I believe that we should focus our marketing on messages that are all about our clients so that we can connect with them in a way that they can understand.
And I'm Matt Love, and I believe in being efficient with our companies so that we are able to keep more of what we make.
Me up beautifully, and that's why I stay plugged in, and I always contribute to my community.
And we're back.
We are back. Welcome to the Earn More, Keep More show. We are still interviewing a good friend here, Mitch Howell.
Good afternoon.
It's good to have you back, man. I'm excited
you.
to have the conversation again. We talked a lot last time about mindset and the ability to actually take action.
Yes.
From what we
And
desired.
we had a great hashtag.
Great hashtag. Hashtag
So, hashtag
we win.
Hashtag we win. And the full sentence there was, we win, I lose. And I really believe that is something that can be transformative for people who are in the bit or in business in general, just getting the concept and getting that idea in their mind that if you are surrounding yourselves with people who are trying to execute together and you're aligning yourself with customers who want to win and want you to win, that concept of we win and we win together is huge.
It's huge. And so that's what we're talking about today. Because once you made the transition,
Yes.
you now have new people that surround you. And you also have some people that followed along with you.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
and just to bridge that gap, so Mitch, you made a transition from a family firm where you were doing well, things were okay, but you decided to make the jump. You made the hard choice, and you transitioned into a new opportunity, a new company, and now you're surrounded with kind of like-minded individuals where you can live out this we win or I lose mentality.
You got it. Spot on.
Now talk to me a little bit now about now that you're here, right? And success is a subjective.
Came up from the bottom, now we here.
That's right. From the philosopher Biggie Smalls. Who was that?
I don't think that was.
That was.
Your rap game's a little weak.
It is weak. Okay,
Sorry about
back to this topic. All right, so the idea of you made this change and you had to kind of change some people around you too. You built a team that's just as like-minded and has the same mindset moving forward, but you also brought some with you, right? I mean, having a team and a backbone for this journey is very important. You're a married guy, right?
Yes, I am.
Talk to me about your family for a bit.
Yeah, it's interesting. So I appreciate the opportunity to be here, but I don't know why I'm here. My wife owns two businesses. I think you guys got the wrong Howell.
Well, she can be on the next set.
Yes.
Actually, the funny thing is,
podcast.
I tried calling her. Mitch he just picked up the phone. I was trying to call Lauren. Yeah, Mitch answered.
Funny how that works.
Unfortunately.
She's too busy for us.
It's
Supposedly
interesting.
she's coming next week, though.
Is she?
I'm surprised
Good.
she didn't tell you that.
Good. She was number one, the most influential, supportive individual throughout this entire transition, right? And even today, when we talk about we win, I lose, at the core, that began with my wife and I. Very like-minded, very similar. You want to talk about an entrepreneur, boom, you've got it right there. And
That's pretty rare to have two in the same house.
You know what? It's funny too. So a lot of the folks that we surround ourselves with, awesome people, they always laugh about it.
Mm-hmm.
I guess there's a thing called type A
Yeah.
And yes.
I've heard of this.
Yes.
The
Yeah.
type A.
Yeah. And so the way that we best explain it is my wife is the Energizer Bunny who is incredibly likable, doesn't set too many boundaries, and she just goes. And it's unbelievable. I am like-minded, except I set very firm boundaries, and I'm much slower to go than my wife. But we still kind of we end at the finish line at the same time somehow, some way, and it just works.
You know what? And that's the thing is that I do not want to be Mitch. I don't want to be Dave. I want to be Matt. Mitch, you're saying the same thing. In order for us to be the best of who we are, we have to, one, be able to know who we are and not try and be somebody else. Understanding that principle is just as important. So you moved on from what was comfortable, went into the unknown, and you have the support of the wife. Tell us about how the success has gone in the last couple of months.
Well, we welcomed our first daughter 8 months ago.
Congratulations.
Yes. So the not to regurgitate, but again, the we win, I lose. I couldn't feel it any more than I do now with the 8-month-old. And I think, Dave, you have 5 children, so I'm sure you feel it
A little bit.
Yeah,
Feel
the
it a
same
lot.
way, right?
There's
Absolutely.
a little bit of stress in that answer too.
Yes.
It was happiness, but a little stress.
Yes.
Well,
yes.
you're joining us on an ice day, so there's that.
But it has been the last few months specifically, and it's interesting you say that, Matt. It has been absolutely life-changing, and it's not that anything significant. Again, my daughter was born 8 months ago, but the last couple of months have been life-changing. It's been a complete shift in the way we approach life, and that is very much so. Surround yourself with the people that are like-minded, because no matter what, everybody out there wants you to be something. If I were to talk to you, Dave, you didn't know me, and you'd quickly have you'd see me, you'd have an assumption, and you would say, I bet this, or I'm expecting, someone's always expecting something.
Yes.
Who cares?
Yep.
Ignore it. And we have learned to do that so well in the last couple of months that it's completely changed our perspective, our outlook on everything and anything we do. Everybody has the same amount of hours in a day. Not everybody has the same amount of hours in a lifetime,
Right.
but in a day.
Yep.
It's all about how you leverage that time to work in your advantage.
I feel like that epiphany is liberating. The fact that you're not supposed to be everything to everyone, and when I want to focus my efforts onto something, it's liberating. You don't have to try and act like.
For me, it was counterintuitive. I spent 7 years just caring so much, right?
Really?
And I don't want to sound, I don't want to sound as though I have a lack of empathy,
Yep.
because I am empathetic.
Right.
But I want to ensure that my belief is you set boundaries, and it allows you to take the path that you believe is the correct path. And sometimes you can take shortcuts. Not shortcutting the work,
Right.
but the path can
Point A to
lead-
B, you can
yes,
find a shortcut.
That is
if
correct.
If you have
If you set
those
very
lanes.
firm boundaries, correct.
Yeah. That's massive. To surround yourself then with people that will be able to align with that same belief too. So your wife obviously has been influential with
Very.
you making the decisions, getting to where you are.
Yes, incredibly.
Now, I don't want to talk about income numbers, but if you were to say where you were 4 years ago when you were at the old firm
Yes.
to where you are now,
Yes.
how if you could quantify that success or the difference, how would you do that? You know, I mean, is it a little bit better? Is it a lot better?
20
Is it-
times.
It's 20 times.
Yes.
20 times where you came from. Who would ever look back?
I'm not even tying that to a number. I'm tying that just to overall happiness.
Thank you. That's where I wanted to go.
Because it's not, we talked about this in the last podcast, right? I was measured in my previous job based purely on numbers, and that wasn't satisfying. Numbers are great, but what are numbers without happiness or anything else? It just, and I'm preaching, I think, to the choir here. Maybe I'm not.
Oh, you totally
I feel
are.
as though I am.
I
Yes.
call it my rate of return of my happiness.
Right.
You know, there's a rate of return in time. There's a rate of return in everything I do with my day. Not everything has to do with the dollar. The biggest asset that we've talked about this that I have is my time and who I choose to share it with. We could talk here quickly about success and how you define that, because I define success as doing what you love and getting paid for it. Like I have the ability now to talk to you guys in the middle of the afternoon where, 10, 15 years ago, I'd have to punch a time clock and go to the office.
Right.
No one got me here except me doing what you're talking about, seeing a vision, taking an action and following that. And then setting up these boundaries, which to me is extremely fascinating. I was not as good at setting up
And you didn't do it by
boundaries.
being the smartest person in the room.
Oh my gosh.
Back to your point, Dave.
Absolutely.
But I wasn't good at the boundary thing. Dave, what about you? I mean, Mitch is one of those guys where, like, if he doesn't want to do it, he says he calls it a lack of empathy. I think it's more than that, because he also knows where he wants to go. And empathy is like retroactive. I think he's so determined to get to point B His blinders are on. I was horrible at that. How were you?
So let's define the term a little bit.
Right. So for me, it begins with time.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever had that moment where everything is thrown on you and it's called a priority?
The tyranny of the urgent.
Yes.
Is what we call it.
Yes.
In our shop.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. When everything's a priority and when everything's urgent, nothing gets done. It's amazing.
It's gosh, I can relate to that. Yeah.
Yes, and it's every day, right? And I see it happen to people around me, and I see it happens to me, right? And it's being able to compartmentalize those specific things to say, you know what, this is a priority to get me from point A to point B. This is a variable, and I have to get to it. But being able to compartmentalize, create boundaries, starting with time, that's the foundation of it for me.
I was going to say, give me an example of some of these boundaries.
Yeah, certainly. So here's a very, very simple one. Calendar. Block it out. Always block out a calendar. And then
block it out. What do you mean? Block it out for
time. Always time block.
Like what, your free time, business time?
That is correct.
Okay.
And if you approach me during busy time,
yeah,
and I ask the question, and you tell me it's going to take 30 seconds,
yeah,
just make it 30 seconds.
Yeah. Don't go beyond that.
Don't go over 30 seconds.
Because it's on the calendar. So I was saying too, do you run your calendar or does your calendar run you? So if I have a green day, which is a business day, or a red day, which is a personal day,
Mm-hmm.
I try not to get off of those tasks. I'm not going to do business on a personal day, which is what you're saying, I think. Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I suck at those boundaries.
See, we all need help with this.
Yeah, I have a, and probably the better person to ask in the room would be our creative director, because we very often are going back and forth on Basecamp or something that 10 o'clock at night trying to figure out, and part of that is due to the nature of the business that we do, which is we serve clients, and clients have needs and all that sort of thing, and we do our best to try to limit that in terms of what they will expect, and make sure that those expectations are in line with the way we want to operate. But at the end of the day, we can still be suckered in.
But what you just said, so there are exceptions to everything. But what's awesome is we can't control what others do. We cannot control your customers' demands. We cannot control what people might think or not think about us as individuals, or how they react to how strict I am based off time blocking. But all I can do is control I can control myself. I control my actions, my words, my beliefs. And as long as I stick to those to a T, I lose or we win. It's one of the two.
I get it. Here's a question too, because you're in the client serving business. We're all three of us are in this. We have clients. Do you feel bad if you block off Sunday or like a time of a day where it's like a family time? Will you give your client a response? Now, let me rephrase this too, because what we feel the need, we have to service our clients, but that doesn't mean we have to service them 24/7. We also should set the expectation from our perspective. Here's what you're going to get when you engage with me. I promise you, I will return your call within 24 hours.
It's a relationship, Matt. Dave, if I got in a relationship with you and I told you exactly how it's going to be all the time and you said yes, how is that a relationship?
Well, it's a relationship. It's just not necessarily one you want to be in long term.
Correct.
Right.
Exactly. So to your point, again, setting those expectations. So expectations are a prerequisite to boundaries.
Mm-hmm. Expectations are a prereq to boundaries. So when the expectations you set with clients, would they expect to get a hold of you on the weekend?
Not on Sundays.
Not on Sundays. It's fair. But Saturdays they're going to get a return call.
100%.
Yep. So you knew that going in. And what about like 10 o'clock on a Tuesday, 10 p.m.?
Yes.
You're available?
Yes.
When is not available? So we're talking, because I want to make sure that the listeners understand that there's going to be boundaries. If you have family time, are you going to take a step away from your family to take a call?
Oh boy.
This is a gray area.
Yes, it is. It really is.
Yeah. But see, I think what we're getting at too is that as long as we have the mindset of setting these up, you could also respond to the client. I'm having family time with my family. Give me an hour, or give me a half an hour.
Right.
Is that fair?
Yeah, it's very fair.
Yeah,
so
it's that expectation.
And also, I think there's a cultural expectation within that family dynamic. So your wife is a business owner. Would she take the call?
The answer is yes.
Mm-hmm.
So if she takes the call and you take the call, and that's just the culture of the family and the way that you guys work, it works. But a lot of entrepreneurs out there, a lot of folks have a very different set of expectations from the other person in their marriage. And when they break that, or they don't show up at 5 o'clock or whatever they're expected to do, there's a breakdown in trust. And again, that's a matter of setting the expectation. So expectations as a prerequisite to setting boundaries.
Correct.
That really has to be set up in all of the different areas of your life, whether it's a client, whether it's with your husband or your wife. Finding those expectations and getting them set in such a way that you understand what they are, because for me, a lot of those I am okay with gray areas and very okay with just going in and figuring something out.
Yeah.
So I don't really love boundaries. I think boundaries are usually there to be bent, or I don't like rules is probably the best way to put it. And I think I'm representative of many entrepreneurs out there in that I believe that rules were specifically made to find ways around the rules. Otherwise, why would you put them there? So setting up those expectations, setting up that realization in your own mind of, this is what I am going to try to do, what I'm going to try to map out. And it might have been when we were in between episodes here, when you started talking about workout time and setting up those times within your day in order to make sure that those times are blocked out so that you get to execute different things. And I think that's a huge discipline that either you have or you struggle with, but it's certainly something that each of us could take a few steps in that direction in order to set those expectations for ourselves and the other people in our lives.
But do you think that discipline, Dave, and you made a tremendous amount of great points, do you think that discipline comes from what other people tell you to do, or does it come from your own mentality?
So for me, it's my mentality,
right?
Because I have gotten to the point, and I have my own company, and basically I set my own schedule and do all of those things. So I don't feel those expectations of others, except for the folks that I'm trying to serve as a company.
Right.
But most people, I would think that those expectations, and of course, I have to say, I have a very gracious wife who puts up with me regardless, which is, having a partner like that is incredibly valuable. And the fact that she knows that next week I could be in a different part of the country for a day or two. And even though we have 5 kids, and that's insane to ask of anyone, she's okay with that because of our relationship, and because she's very confident and competent in her own right. So really, she's the only one that can set expectations on me. The rest really comes from the way I set expectations for myself or for my clients or the folks that work with me in my business.
I used to say that being in charge of your own calendar is a blessing and a curse at the same time. Because if you don't have the mentality to block off and set these boundaries, you get nothing done. Your lifestyle can go to crap real quick. Whether it's eating healthy, working out or not working out, or hanging out with the wrong crowd, that in charge of your own, these boundaries are everything when it comes to success. And this is also the value of who you hang out with and who you spend your time with.
This is going to sound incredibly boring.
Here we go.
Incredibly boring, and I know it's going to
what a great
result
build
in.
up. I'm excited. I'm excited. Jen, you excited? I'm excited. Here we go. I think it's downplaying. It's going to
result in many questions.
You don't know what you don't know.
Yes.
So something that I say all the time is, there is no longevity in instant fun.
You said this to me and that stopped me in my tracks one night.
People look at me and they're like, Mitch, I get it. You're not a funny guy. You're right. I'm not funny at all.
To me, that is funny. Just to say that, I think that's funny.
But I'm far more interested in longevity.
Yeah.
of what I'm doing today is going to result in X in whatever, however I measure it, right?
So wait, you downplayed a very sophisticated thought by saying, you're not funny. But the thought is the instant gratification seldomly leads to long-term happiness.
You said it so much better than I did.
That's why I get the
Yes.
podcast. But
Yes.
I want you to be back here
Yeah,
too, by
thank
the way.
you.
So what does that mean, though? Because we live in it. I have my cell phone in my pocket. I can find out what all my friends are doing like right now.
Right.
Instant gratification is like all over the world. How do you do that? This is the boundary question.
Yeah, and it's I live in the technology world, so it's a blessing and a curse.
How often do you just shut your phone off and put it down?
Never. But I flip it over often and put it on Do Not Disturb.
See, that's okay. So that's what I was looking for. At some point, it makes sense to go. I'm checking out.
That's the same thing as off, by the way.
It is. Yes. Sorry, I'm very
I
black.
don't
and
know
white.
that mine. I don't know that my phone's been off in the last like 6 months.
Yes.
Like my daughter literally picks up my phone and she does the thing where you turn off apps, and she'll go through like 60 different apps because I never turn the thing off.
Yeah.
So I want to go back really quick to the concept of longevity versus instant fun or instant gratification, because what you mentioned about it being all about social media, everything about social media is the instant. It's what, hey, look at me, I'm skiing in Vail. Hey, look at me, I'm in the Bahamas.
Sure.
Like somebody's going to be in the Bahamas a couple of weeks.
2 weeks.
So doing all those things and showing that, hey, I am instantly gratified. But in order for you to go to the Bahamas in 2 weeks, what did you have to do in order to get to the position that you're going into that? So really focusing in on, yes, you can have those fun things, but social media lies to us by telling us that these people are doing all these things all the time,
Right.
and it's not true.
No.
Because if you're not doing the hard things, if you're not doing, unless you are just purely living off of your credit card, which a lot of social media drives a lot of folks to do, you are putting in the work in a different way. And then you may, once or twice a year be going on a great trip, and that might be really enjoyable. And that's a
what
great
makes
thing.
the Facebook reel too.
And that's
by the way.
what,
Right.
yeah, exactly. So the Facebook reel tells us that these things are happening as a shortcut, and they're happening all the time.
Yeah.
The real work is what's happening every day, and it's based off of the fact that you were able to execute over a long period of time, having that longevity, having that sustainability in your work, in your family life. Otherwise, you go from pictures of your lovely wife in a bikini to the random 21-year-old in the bikini. And honestly, that's what a lot of entrepreneurs end up doing, and it just becomes a very hollow thing.
Very hollow.
Nailed it.
Yeah, that's powerful, man. Instant gratification is not worth the long-term happiness. It really isn't. But the hard part, what we're going to set up on the website today too. So if you're interested in this topic, we're going to have on the website a idea of how to set boundaries on your calendar. So we're going to use some of Mitch's examples of, here's what I call the non-variable. Here's something that I'm not going to move. Once a day, I got to go to the gym.
Right.
Or dinner time with the family, non-questionable, not missing that. So we'll come up with a couple of ideas, or use some of your ideas for the calendar so that people at home can use it as well. And then let's talk about the calendar idea too, because I know my wife, and Jen was just talking about this too, the digital thing doesn't work all the time. I've tried to share my digital calendar with my wife, and it sounds so weird. My wife was like, I'm not going to go on your calendar to make an event with my husband. I thought, well, that's actually kind of a good point. So how do you do that, Mitch?
So we actually have a chalkboard in our house.
You do?
So right when you walk into our mudroom, yes, right there, very large. Yeah, it's a pretty little. I don't know where my wife got it, but it works.
And
It's
do you do
functional.
weekly or is it monthly?
Daily
Daily.
for the month. Yes,
Wow.
yes,
So all of the events that you guys do go on the calendar.
that is correct.
So if you miss something and you scheduled an appointment and it's in conflict with the calendar, I'm guessing the appointment moves and the calendar stays
That
true.
is correct. Yes.
Boundaries. Hashtag boundaries.
Hashtag boundaries,
Perfect example of
which
how.
is better than the hashtag time block, because that's just, I don't love the time block
I
thing.
don't like time block.
It's not great.
But what a
Hashtag
good-
boundaries.
But what a good example of the priorities. Look at the instant satisfaction of going to maybe even get a sale, but just one more touch with a client. Not worth the long-term longevity of hanging out with the wife and kiddo at home.
I'm feeling it right now. I had to hand over everything I was working on for this first quarter, which runs January 1 to March 30th.
Yeah.
Hand it all over to sales support.
Wow.
Just to focus on this 1 5-year contract.
Wow. See, that goes back to the value of the team too, because
Right.
you have the ability to do that. We've talked a little bit about scaling our companies, but the ability to do what you just said is massively important. We've reached the ceiling of competency at a certain level, and it's to have that as now you have an opportunity to get a 5-year contract.
That is correct.
That's huge.
And going back to the tyranny of the urgent. So if you are, and I wrote a little bit about this. We have a few blogs on the Goalpost website about the whirlwind. And most entrepreneurs, when they enter the office, they have now just entered the whirlwind, the maelstrom. And that whirlwind is smacking them in the face from the time they enter the office until the time they leave. And basically, when an entrepreneur is in the whirlwind, they are unable to determine what is important and what is unimportant because everything is urgent.
Right.
And when you're able to escape from the tyranny of the urgent by saying, okay, I'm going to hand off essentially a quarter's worth of work on every other client to sales support, and I'm going to focus solely on, the Moby Dick, the white whale, the great contract that you're going for that has the potential to pay probably significantly more than half or maybe all of those other things. Now you are focusing only on the important, non-urgent, and the important non-urgent is really where, if you're going to be successful as an entrepreneur on a longer time span, you really have to be able to gear out of the important urgent, get rid of completely the important non-important urgent, and then really focus in on the non-urgent yet important things in your life, because those areas are the areas that you're going to be able to have the greatest gains.
Right. Longevity versus instant gratification. I will not feel this contract for another 8 months. I would feel everything I'm working on right now at the end of March.
You mean in terms of like basically payment to
yes,
you?
payment, correct. Yes, and delivered to the customer.
Yeah.
And you hit on something, Dave, that I love, the whirlwind when you walk in, right? So I love be the storm, don't get consumed in it. Don't walk into it. Be it, and then you consume everything else.
Be the storm.
Say that again.
Hashtag be the storm.
No,
I don't know.
Too much.
That's
a
pretty
good power
good.
bomb. I like
power
this.
bomb.
Be the storm. Don't be consumed.
Yes. Don't be consumed by it.
Now, what do you mean though? Okay, let's say I walk into my office.
Yep.
I want to be
Own it.
the catalyst of everybody changing or doing something.
You own everything. Yes.
Don't be consumed by it. Rather, you're almost taking a proactive state rather than a reactive state.
Correct.
So I really like Be the Storm. I feel like my team would say that generally when I come in, I am the storm, but not necessarily in a good way. How do you make that a good
There's
way?
a positive
How can you be the storm that brings rain, that grows the crops, without being the tornado that leaves behind you devastation?
Well, it all comes back, I think, to the great question, Dave. So I think for me personally, it comes back to the basic principle again of I lose, we win. So if I can create a storm, bring everybody together, and not allow anything to impact that and to break that, we're all going to win together. It's purely based upon the foundational principle applied to be the storm. Don't get consumed by it.
I love that. That's fantastic.
I can't wait till your book comes out.
I'm not a very good no.
I believe you, but they have a thing called ghostwriters nowadays,
Yes.
where you can kind of talk and people help you. You have enough information. I think you could create a little bit of a story.
I'd rather read Dave's book.
You can pick one of those out on your way out. We can have that for you. But
Amazon.com.
I really want to go back to just a couple things that you said in order to kind of wrap this thing up together.
Here's the takeaway.
Because I think having expectations as the prerequisite to setting boundaries, I think that's a huge concept that every one of the entrepreneurs listening can really focus on. and really find ways within your life to set those expectations with your team at work, with your family at home. And not just set them as in, here are my expectations of you, but really as a collaborative process. Because if you can create that collaboration with your team, with your family, and find ways to create that type of environment to set those boundaries, I think you then have what I think I'm hearing you have, which is some really well-defined boundaries that really give you a lot of freedom to be who you are in the spots that you need to be. Is that correct?
Yes. You said
Yes.
that far better than I could have ever. So
We're going to get Mitch to spill the beans on some of the boundaries so that the listeners can kind of take a couple of pages out of his not written book yet and get an insight as to how they can start controlling their time like Mitch does.
Mitch, thank you so much for coming out to
Absolutely.
the
Thank
Earn
you,
More,
gentlemen.
Keep More show. Please, we want our listeners to go to earnmorekeepmore.show. We're going to have some materials there for you about setting up your calendar and creating some of those prerequisites that help you to define boundaries. So thanks so much for coming. It's been a lot of fun.
thank you.
Mitch Howell, everybody. Thanks, Mitch.
Thanks, guys.
Bye now.
See you guys.
Drop the mic.
I'm Matt Love,
And I'm Dave McAndrews,
and we are downtown New York City today on a beautiful sunny day.
bringing you the latest in how to earn more and keep more.
And if you're a business owner like us, you're interested in growing your business. There's only two ways to make that happen. Either you increase your sales or you reduce the cost that you had to incur to make those sales.
Click below or go to earnmorekeepmore.show.
This has been a Goalpost production.
That's it for us. We are your hosts, Dave McAndrews and Matt Love. Our executive producer and creative guru is Jennifer McKinstry. Our social media director is Mark Farnes. And a very special thank you to Lansing's own Jose Moore for providing the music.
Thanks for listening.